when is the best time to disclose my divorce to people I date? I'm 24 and have just started dating again after getting divorced from my ex-husband, who I was with for 5 years. I feel like being this young and divorced carries a lot of stigma, and I'm afraid of scaring people away with my past. It feels exhausting to go through the entire story with every potential partner, but also deceptive if I'm not upfront about it, as I know it will be a deal breaker for some people. I want to navigate post-divorce dating in the right way so I don't repeat mistakes, and determining at what stage I should share about my divorce feels paramount to this. And I can also give you the backstory of the divorce if you want that context.
Yeah, what happened?
So we met shortly before I turned 19. He had just got back from a deployment. We dated for about a year, and then we got married right after I turned 20. During that year of dating and that first year of marriage, he struggled significantly with alcohol and mental health, to the point where there were many nights where he was going to tell me he was going to end his life and then just wouldn't answer my calls or my texts. So I wouldn't know if he did it until the next morning when he would text me and told me he was just drunk. So about a year into the marriage, I considered getting a divorce, mainly due to the alcoholism and his refusal to get help. But there were tons of other reasons as well. However, he committed to stop drinking, so I was willing to rebuild with the very clear boundary that if he ever drank again, I would be done. He was sober for 2.5 years, but we were having significant marital issues. We couldn't communicate without arguing. I felt like a maid and a mother. He would get very angry sometimes and break things in our house and yell, but it was never directed at me. And in response to me telling him I was unhappy and I didn't know if I wanted to stay married, he went out that night to a bar and broke his sobriety and called me the next morning and let me know. And I just knew I couldn't live through that again. So that's when I initiated the separation and the divorce.
Okay, so the smoke is cleared. How long have you been officially divorced?
Since December, but we've been separated since last May. So It's coming up on a year.
So, but officially you've been divorced for like just a few months.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you exhaled yet?
A little bit.
Because what I hear wrapped up in your call or in your question is almost you still wondering if you did the right thing.
Yeah, I think there's days where, especially I've listened to your show a lot since all that happened and talking about rebuilding and things. And it just makes me think, like, what if I had given a chance of saying, like, okay, but this is very clear what I want. And if you, like, giving him the option to opt in or out, I didn't do that. I just
He did.
Said,
you did. He opted out. You were very clear. If you drink again, you're smashing things and it's not safe here in this house. And when you said, I don't feel safe in this house, he went out and got wasted. He gave you his answer. Right?
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is the person you're not okay with is you. And here's why here's where I'm coming from with that question is a person you meet on a first date or a second date or even a third date, they don't get a vote into your life. They weren't in that room when that trained veteran was smashing things. They weren't up all night wondering if your ride or die was dead. Night after night after night. They weren't in that house when a drunk, intoxicated person says, we're doing this sexually tonight, no matter what you say. They don't get a vote. And so I guess my answer for you is, I don't think you're being deceptive by saying, hi, my name's Marie, how are you? And I don't think you have anything to hide to say, I got married when I was 19, 20 years old. And it ended up being a pretty unsafe situation. And so I'm a 24-year-old who's already been through a divorce. How about you? And if that scares somebody away, then that's a better sorting mechanism than any swipe right could ever be.
Yeah, you're right about that. And to be fair, the people I have gone on dates with and told, I mean, their reaction is obviously a little shocked, but there's not really any judgment. If anything, they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
when I tell them, like, it's giving me a different perspective on things I want, and,
Yeah.
they're accepting of it. I think it really is an inside battle, an internal
I mean, it feels like an inside battle. And if I can just, like, I've heard this over and over and over again for forever. I mean, for as long as I've been having these conversations, it doesn't matter if somebody's been separated for 5 years. The day that divorce is finalized starts a new grieving process. Now, I've seen it on Instagram, like the hooray or the divorce party, I'm finally free, and I'm sure that happens. I'm sure there's super scary, toxic, nonsense messes that people are just so free to be, like, legally detached from.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, when they're honest on that day, or most people when it's not a situation like that, it's like outside the bell curve, but a divorce, somebody scared me, somebody I loved but was struggling with addiction, somebody that became somebody they weren't only when they were drinking, but man, when things were good, they were so good. Like that kind of divorce, even if you're separated for a year, man, my guess is there's still smoke and fog. Like it still feels weird being 24 years old saying, I'm divorced.
Yes, it does. And I mean, we were officially divorced in December, but like things kept being drug out because he wouldn't stick to the agreement. So
Sure.
He wouldn't sign paperwork he needed to sign. So it felt like even though it's been finalized, like it's still not like done. And
Right.
So that was maybe like 2 weeks ago that it finally got done.
There you go.
And so now it feels like I can finally okay.
And also, let's be honest, this is no judgment, okay? This is just me laying facts out on the table. You are also dating and not officially divorced.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's still that nagging, like, all right, but I mean, technically I'm married. But, like I'm cut. And you also roll your eyes enough to know that that's what every guy says when they're out who's cheating on their wife, right? They're like, no, we're
Right.
like separated. It's all good, right? And then they find out they got a wife and 3 kids in the house, right? So all I have to say is you haven't been settled in your own spirit for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel that way. I think a lot of what I'm worried about is the reason telling people that, like, oh, I left because he broke his sobriety. That to me just sounds so cold. Like you couldn't stick through with the person you love.
But what was beneath the sobriety? He made you not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, you don't have to get in that kind of detail.
Yeah.
I got married super, super young, and it was really tough. It was tough. And then maybe after dating someone for a couple of months, a couple of years, you can get into some of the, this is what I went through. This is why I don't drink. This is why I don't meet people at bars. Right? But that's not a conversation you come into right on day one. It's like, yeah, I'm 24, I'm divorced. And by the way, there's a disorienting feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there was like yesterday I was driving home. Okay, yesterday I was driving home, and all of a sudden I saw all these guys. There's a house that's being built in my neighborhood. They knocked down an old house and they're building a new one. And all of a sudden, all these guys start running across the street. Traffic is wild. They're running across the street. This is a residential street, but it's backed up for what looks like a mile. They start sprinting across the street, holding sticks and shovels. And I'm like, what are they doing? And I look up, and there's a car that has just been nailed, and it is upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys who were building this house were running across the street to try to help this person who's trapped in the car. I immediately zoom up, pull off, and there's already 3 or 4 guys in that car around the car. And still to this day, I don't know how this happened. But this woman got out without a scratch on her. It was wild. I could not believe what I saw. Every airbag was deployed. The car's up, the windshield shattered. And that woman, I reached in and grabbed her hand and pulled her out of this car. It was wild. And here's the thing I was thinking as I was walking over there. If that had been me, the police report would have said, whatever, mid-40-year-old male, adult male, and I don't feel like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I went and punched somebody or if, let's say, Kelly hit somebody, it would say 65-year-old woman commits assault, and she's not 65, I'm just playing. But right, like, it's weird to read that stuff in writing, especially as we're an adult, because we don't feel that old.
Right.
And when you're a kid, the word divorced means like 50.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're 24.
Yeah.
And so let that feel weird for a minute. And give yourself some time and some grace and some peace to settle into, this is my life. And I kept myself safe. I don't have anything to apologize for. I'm heartbroken that it didn't work out. And I'm not ever going to forget that when things were good, they were real good. And I'm not going to forget when things were bad, they were real scary. Real scary. And so I kept myself safe. And I get to tell that story on my terms. And if somebody wants to not date me because I'm not, then that's fine. But I want you to give yourself peace, Marie, that over time, that give yourself grace because that peace will return. Man, what an amazing thing. I kept myself safe. I did the next hard, scary thing. So when do you tell them? Whenever you want to. When do you disclose it? Whenever it feels right. In whatever bite-sized chunks it feels right to you. I'm proud of you, sister. I'm proud of you. Let's go do the next right thing. And whenever you meet the next right person, call in. I'll talk to him. We'll give him the Kelly Delony screening.